We've been talking about what makes for effective communication. And one of the very basic elements, something you probably wouldn't even say normally if somebody asks you the question, is honor. Honor needs to be there. The listener is honoring the speaker is honoring the listener. And that's one of the basic fundamentals that leads to effective communication.
What does it mean to honor someone? One of the things it could mean would be actually giving your attention to someone that's speaking instead of pretending like you're giving your attention to them.
How do you do that?
How do you let go? I'd like to let go. I'd like to give you my attention, but how do I do that?
Welcome, everyone, to the True You podcast. With me, Martin Kettlehut, author and executive coach, especially to the leaders in a family or an organization. And I'm joined by my partner in this endeavor, Bill Tierney, whose coaching is compassionate and results-based and steeped in the IFS model, internal family systems.
Yeah. Glad to be here. You said something I haven't heard you say before. Doesn't mean you haven't said it. I just didn't hear it before. And that was that you work with leadership teams from family businesses. Did I hear that right?
No, I work with leaders, and some of them are leading families.
Oh, I get it. Okay. Mm-hmm. Thanks for clarifying. Yeah.
Yeah. There's lots of ways we lead. We lead our own personal lives. For example, I led myself to the gym this morning. I didn't need somebody to do that for me, but I also lead as the older brother at Thanksgiving this last weekend. We did ours a week before in my family to avoid the mass hysteria at the airports. And I'm the older brother. I'm a kind of leader in that. And I arranged the whole thing. I invited, etc. So we lead not only if we're manager of the company or CEO of the corporation. We also have lots of other ways in which we lead, even if you're just picking up the trash in your yard and you happen to reach over into the neighbor's yard and pick up a piece of trash that was in there. That's a subtle form of leadership.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Good examples. I had to get us the same size. I felt like I was sitting too low, and then I just adjusted my camera, and now I'm feeling more equal to you.
One of the things I've had to adjust as we've been doing this podcast is for some reason the program that we use, Squadcast, it locates our pictures off to the side. So I make the screen smaller and so that I can move it into the middle.
Yeah, it does. It changes our location on the screen. How did we decided on a topic today?
Communication, which is a vast topic.
Yeah, it is. And so we're probably, maybe we want to be more specific about effective communication.
Okay.
And what are the elements of that? What's it take?
Uh-huh.
And I think it's kind of interesting just that this topic was born as the topic for this episode 12 minutes ago when we signed on, and you said you liked my new background. You liked it better than my closet doors. And I moved my desk just this past weekend. And so instead of looking out the window this way, now I'm looking at the wall with this background, and I can still see out the window over here. So I get plenty of nice light, and I can see what's going on up front. It's really worked out well, by the way. I'm not nearly as distracted by what's going on out there.
I also have the window over there.
Oh, you do? Yes. Yeah. And so you noticed on my bookshelf right about there, my
something that is also on my bookshelf right about here.
And isn't that incredible? So you would think that Marty and I decided we were both going to go out and buy one of these, or maybe we were together and you liked that arrangement and I like this arrangement, but it's much stranger than that.
It's much stranger than that. Yeah.
About the story for me is that about 10 years ago, I was running a lot more than I run now. I don't hardly run at all anymore, but I used to be quite a runner. I would run half marathons, and I ran one marathon. And there was a fundraiser every year in Spokane, and it's probably still going. And it was a fundraiser for digging wells for water, clean drinking water in Kenya. And so after the race was finished, and of course I won the race, so I had to wait for everybody else to come in. And so I was killing time. I'm just kidding. I didn't. But they had tables set up with crafts that the people from Kenya that they brought over for the event were selling. And I saw this and I picked it up and I said, "What is this?"
Mhm.
And she says, "It's a talking stick." And I said, "Okay." I was looking at it and wondering how it talked. And she said, "No, it doesn't talk. You talk if you're holding the stick. And everybody knows that if you're holding the stick, you are the one that talks." And then, so you have a story about your stick as well. Where did that come from?
Yeah, well, just I'm going to insert in the space between here. It's interesting. Raises interesting questions for me, just historically, or maybe it's a universal thing that we're talking about because the American Indians also no connection to Africa. They also use talking sticks.
Mm-hmm.
So interesting. It might be a universal need in communication that we're about to talk about. But my story is in the summer of 2000, I needed to do two big things. I needed to move all my belongings from New York City to San Diego, and I needed to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. And when I got down from the mountain, and we were being bussed back to Nairobi to fly home, we stopped at a little shop right on the border between Tanzania and Kenya. And I bought a big piece of, it's called, it's a huge piece of fabric. It's beautiful. It's all browns and purples and swirly shapes and everything. And I use it as a big, um, almost like a painting in my living room. It takes up most of one wall. It's like um, Monet's lilies. It just goes on and on and on.
Mm-hmm.
And I bought that, and I also bought this, and I wonder what this was for. What did they use this for? And the thought had occurred to me because I know that an important piece of the uh, diet of what's the name of the tribe now? Maasai, of the Maasai people that made this is goat's milk and goat's blood. And I thought, well, maybe they use this to conk them out.
It would do the job, I would think.
I would think so.
It's a substantial lever at the end there, or not lever, but it's a substantial ball of very hard wood. I wouldn't want to get hit with it for sure.
Right? Exactly. So, but I'm relieved to know that it's actually just a talking stick.
Yeah, well, that's what I was told, and I believed her. So,
yeah, sure. I do too.
So I've actually used it in live sessions with clients. When I used to do live sessions, I sometimes would bring this along and say, "Okay, if somebody's holding a stick, that means they're the one that have the floor."
But you see, these are for those who can see or watching. These are beads. This is all bead work.
Yeah, yeah. So interesting. So 15 years apart, and roughly 25 years ago, you bought yours. I bought mine 10 years ago, and we end up working together. And you just happened to notice this on my bookshelf, and it was several months ago that you brought yours out and showed it to me. So,
yeah.
Well, when we didn't have a topic for today to discuss, that well, there it is. There's our topic. A talking stick represents communication, and if we're talking about effective communication, we probably need to talk about ineffective communication.
Mm-hmm.
And we both had stories of clients who we helped in one way or another, or the people that they affected with their communications. One So yeah, what are some of the examples
Well,
of?
let's just start with one of the point of the why it's a it, the point about the talking stick is that it it creates a structure, a rule to follow in communication that's very helpful. Namely, when I have the talking stick, I get to do the talking, and everyone is meant to listen to what I have to say, and then I can hand it to somebody else, and then we all put our attention on that person, and they get to do the talking, and that facilitates civility. It encourages listening, right? And so this is an important element of. It's very basic, but it's an absolutely essential element of communication. If we're just talking at each other and nobody's on the listening side, communication does not happen.
And there's a big difference between listening and being quiet. There's a
Yes.
there's two, at least two different qualities of listening that I can name, and maybe there's more. And one of these qualities is conducive to great communication, and one of them is not.
Mm-hmm.
So to listen for an opportunity to speak does not lead to good communication. To listen to understand leads to great communication.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Likely, if I'm listening to understand when I do speak, it's going to be with a request for more clarity so I can understand better.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If I'm listening for an opportunity to speak, there's a different internal internal experience happening where there's an influence that wants me to counter, argue, or dominate, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Dominate the person, dominate the conversation, or dominate the topic.
Yes.
Get my way.
Yeah.
And even when that is the case, and you gave in your example earlier, I don't want you to give those details again because it could lead back to the person that you're talking about, thinking that we're talking about them. But when someone inserts themselves with an argument and they're just waiting for the inhale, so they have an opportunity to exhale with words, um, that leads to just conflict, and and um, and it's really poor communication. You're not really understanding the other person, and you're not going to be understood either because you're triggering a defensive response from the person you're speaking to.
And right. I mean, take the example recently when Pam Bondi was being the oversight committee was asking her about her work as the Attorney General of the United States. And she was just waiting. You could see she was just waiting for them to stop asking the question so that she could accuse them of things that she wanted to accuse them of. There was no communication.
Yeah, yeah. And many times it'd be great to have these talking sticks and the rule book that goes along with them, and just distribute each of these to the congressmen and the senators. And
Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, that's not workable. It just it
I
what's
like to think of the listening pieces. I want to listen so well that I'm just in them. Like I am them, the person I'm listening to. And so I think of it like I want to listen so well that I don't have anything to say at the end. That's the way I kind of do it in my own mind. Like when I'm listening to a client, for example, I want to listen so well that I just feel like we are one at the end of what they've said, and I don't. They, they've said what there's to say. That's how I think about listening in the way that I think you're pointing to.
yeah, yeah. In fact, when I am listening in that way, which I aim to do, especially when I'm sitting in the coaching seat.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, I've known a lot of coaches that sit in a different position when they're coaching. They're dominating the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
They're making their client wrong, and they're the experts. And that I've had coaches like that, and that's just not workable. It absolutely. As a client, I've tried to make myself let them be the authority and follow their guidance.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a big problem with that, and that is if I follow their guidance and it works, the power and credit goes to them. I still haven't built my own confidence. I still don't trust myself to do it without them. But if they give me something to do, I do it, and it doesn't work, then I'm blaming them, whether I do so secretly or overtly.
Mhm.
But in either case, it doesn't build confidence. And I think powerful coaching actually does that. Powerful coaching helps the client to recognize that they have the power, the wisdom, all the resources that they need to pull off whatever it is that they get an idea that they want to pull off in life.
Yeah. It's more like I find it's more kind of like um leading them through their own house to show them like, well, you've got this couch, you've got this lamp, and it's just showing them this is you. You've got these talents, you've got this belief, just showing them, and then they work it out.
Yeah. Yeah. So in listening in the way that you were just describing, what I've noticed is that it takes a noticeable, hard to miss internal shift to go from listening so closely, so interestingly, and listening with such interest that when I feel like, oh, this person now is waiting for something from me, I have to go find it. I have to shift and go find what it is I might want to say,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm just, as you say, I'm just in what they're saying and I'm really getting it.
Yeah.
I remember one time, and this was, uh, gosh, 23 years ago, I was listening to a friend talking about his passionate thoughts and feelings about Jesus. And at that point in my life, I still wasn't complete with the Catholic Church and still had a lot of problems with the idea of Jesus. But and this is before I was a coach, I was just listening very closely to what he had to say.
Mm-hmm.
And now I can talk about it in terms of parts. So from a place of self, of authentic self, where I was listening with compassion and without concern or worry or fear, and just really interested and wanting to understand, I noticed that I was nodding as he was talking about Jesus, and I'm nodding.
Mm-hmm.
And then a part of me spoke up inside, and I could hear this voice in my head that said, oh, he thinks that when you're nodding, you agree with what he's saying, that you believe what he believes. You need to set him straight. So I stopped him and I said, I need to clarify something here. I'm listening and I think I'm understanding what you're saying. So I'm nodding. But when I'm nodding, it doesn't mean that I agree or believe what you believe. And then, of course, that changed the whole conversation, because at that point he had assumed that.
Mm-hmm.
He was shocked, in fact, that I didn't believe as he believed and didn't agree with what he was saying.
In a way, you were listening to how he was listening. You were seeing, you could see in the conversation, he was listening to your nodding as if that meant you were agreeing.
Yeah, it's interesting. Your use of the term listening here indicates there's more ways to listen than just with your ears.
Of course, yes. Yeah.
So then listening points to potentially meaning making.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so do some of these things that we don't notice. Like I could tell I was talking to a member of a team that I coached recently, and he was doing one of these. I could tell he wasn't listening. He was figuring out what to say. It's a power move. You take up space. You show that you're unfazed like that. And so I stopped talking immediately. And I just asked him, what are you thinking? What's going on? And of course, that gave me, he jumped right in. He definitely wanted to talk. So he got heard, and then I could proceed.
I've heard that before. I've heard a lot of what it means to have your arms crossed.
That's another one, yeah.
Or to have your hands behind your head and your arms out like this to make you look bigger. I do this because it feels comfortable. unless I'm in denial, and I've heard all these interpretations of what each of these things mean, and I've even uncrossed my arms because I didn't want them to think that that's what it meant. Sometimes what it meant is this is the most comfortable position that I can hold right now.
Yes, sometimes it does. Absolutely, no question about that. Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, you went with your instinct. You must. I'll bet that you had another indicator besides his body language that he wasn't listening as much as he wanted to talk.
Maybe that could be, but yeah, I mean, there are lots of these things to watch. We listen with our eyes, we listen with our nose, not necessarily over Zoom, but in at other times, we listen with all of our senses, and they all give us clues as to what there is to learn in the moment.
Yeah. There's a lot to listen to while someone's talking.
I was talking to, this is 2 weeks ago, I was talking to a young client of mine, and I saw this. I was like, what is your leg trying to tell us? And he said, how did you know? and then I said, well, just listen to your leg. What is it saying? What's that thought that it's having? And he said, I'm scared to do the assignment you just gave me. So yeah, there are lots of ways we listen.
Really nice. I was sharing with you that there was that when a member of one of my groups leaves, and this began probably 3 years ago when I recognized just how awkward it is to have a participant leave and to know what to do and what to say other than see you later. Like it always felt incomplete to me when they would leave because I didn't know how they felt and they didn't know how I felt.
No communication.
Right. So I formalized that so that when participants leave a group, we earmarked some time. Now it's easy, very easy to spend an entire session saying goodbye to somebody. So if there's a lot of turnover, even once every 3 months, somebody leaves a group, we really don't have the time to spend a full hour on completion, but that's how rich it can be. Spending the time saying goodbye to someone that you know you're not going to be interacting with as much or as frequently or maybe at all again. So I designed some questions that are suggestions for people to ask themselves and then answer for themselves and then determine if they want to share their answers with the person that's departing and vice versa. For the departing participant to ask themselves, answer for themselves, and then decide whether they want to share with the group. And it can be just a beautiful experience. It's so connecting. And there's almost like a dichotomy here this happened maybe just this morning is a good example of it, where the completion process had me feeling more connected to the person that was leaving than I'd felt before they left.
I get that.
Would it be helpful, do you suppose, to share those questions?
It would be. I'm dying to hear them. Yes.
I've created a document to share with my group members. And I'll include it in show notes so that if anybody listening does groups or just wants to use the questions in a situation where someone's leaving, you might this might be helpful in knowing what to say. So here's what I've written. Saying goodbye to a group member is both a time of celebration and a time of letting go. The completion process is designed to honor the connections we've built, the impact we've had on one another, and the ways we've grown together. By taking time to reflect on these prompts and questions, both the departing member and the remaining group members can express gratitude, share meaningful acknowledgments, and recognize the unique contributions each of us has made. These exchanges not only provide closure, but also strengthen the sense of respect, care, and mutual appreciation that defines our group. So that's the setup. And here are the prompts and the questions for the group members.
Let me just quickly say something. And notice that the purpose, if I could just reduce what the preamble there to, is to honor,
That's right.
just like the talking stick.
Yeah.
Oh, it sounds like we have a recurring observation here that honor is key to communication. Okay, you go ahead.
Yeah, really good. Honor. Honor sounds like comes from the same word that honest comes from.
It does, yes.
And honest has to do with truth. Truth has to do with trust. Trust has to do with safety. Safety, trust, honesty, honoring. Yeah. Yeah. So answer the following questions to prepare to acknowledge the departing group member or the departing person. Number 1, what positive influence has this person had on you?
Mm-hmm.
Number 2, what do you appreciate about this person? Number 3, what have you learned from this person? And number 4, what will you miss when they're gone?
That's great.
It just occurred to me that this would work really well for a eulogy as well.
Oh gosh, yeah, it would. Yeah, I mean, those are so poignant. Those 4 questions. Yeah, there's, it sets up a thorough look at letting, honoring and letting go.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And here's the questions, very similar.
Imagine if we did those 4 questions at the end of every conversation.
We'd never stop talking.
But we'd feel honored and heard
and safe and connected.
Yeah. Okay.
So the departing member questions are very similar, but there's some differences. So the instructions for the departing member are answer the following questions to prepare to acknowledge the group. Number 1, how have you grown and what have you accomplished since being in the group? And if it's not a group departure, maybe the question would be, how have you grown and what have you accomplished in relationship with this person that, or this group that you're leading?
Yeah.
Number 2 is, what have you appreciated about being a member of this group?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Number 3, what have you learned during your participation in the group?
Mm-hmm.
And number 4, what will you miss? And there's been a couple of times where we have used the entire 90-minute and the group session for a completion, and we go deeper.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So as a group, I have them journal, and I ask them these questions. As you reflect on these questions and this transition, what parts of you become activated?
Okay, now we're going to be here for a while.
Right. And some common answers to that question are sad. I've got a part that's really sad.
Mm-hmm. Hi, everybody. It's Bill Tierney. If you're drawn to the internal family systems model and want to practice living it, not just learning about it, the True You groups were made for this work. Each week, we either do a group IFS exercise or one of the members receives a full 40-minute IFS coaching session. Every voice is included. Every conversation is through the IFS lens, and together, self-energy grows in community. Learn more at compassionateresultscoaching.com. That's compassionateresultscoaching.com. Now back to the episode.
I've got a part that's really sad,
Mm-hmm.
a part that feels abandoned,
Mm-hmm.
a part that was afraid to speak up when I was answering those questions because it felt like I was supposed to play nice and I don't want to. That has shown up.
Mm-hmm. Now, I'm making an observation as you're going on to talk about these and realizing that my focus just went from heart to head. Like,
Oh, really?
I'm just going to respond like in a word to each of those 4 questions. Let's say it's going to be intuitive. It's going to be right from the heart, like the heart of the matter.
Yeah.
But now these questions, this isn't a bad thing, by the way, but I just noticed that my attention went from here to here.
And that makes sense because I'm asking you an intellectual question. What parts? First of all, that it requires a noticing. So that can be somatic, but it does require a mental process to kind of inventory. What am I noticing?
Mm-hmm. Mhm.
I'm noticing the part that is sad. I'm noticing the part that feels abandoned. I'm noticing the part that's incomplete because of that argument that we never got cleaned up.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a friend who's in Thailand right now on a trip, a big adventure, other side of the world. She's never been there. And she posts a whole bunch of pictures, like 25 pictures on Facebook. They're really interesting, especially of the markets. But anyway, I wrote her and I said, give me 3 words to describe the experience you're having. And she wrote back and said 3 words. Freedom, flow, gratitude. Very poignant, just like right there, right?
Yeah.
That's different from tell me about your trip, right?
Yeah. A couple more. There's a few more here. Would you like me to share them?
Yes,
The
please.
deeper dive.
Mm-hmm.
So the suggestion is then you just notice. Just notice what's and as Marshall Rosenberg would say if he were still on the planet, but he says in his recorded documents, what's alive inside.
Mm-hmm.
Notice what you're experiencing in this moment as we complete with this person that's leaving, or as you're about to leave.
Mm-hmm.
What's alive inside?
Mm-hmm.
What parts have become activated? Take some notes, and notes not only about the parts of you, but also what you notice about how they influence you. I feel sad, I feel angry, I'm nervous, my body's shaking, my leg is bouncing, whatever that would be. Set intentions for how you want to respond to these parts and act on any insights you gain. Like an insight might be, gosh, I thought that I was complete with Robert when this thing happened 3 months ago. And now that he's leaving, I realize I'm guarded and I'm holding back on what I don't want him to feel good about the things that I say. I'm kind of pissed at him. Darn it. So that's an insight. I need to do something about that.
Yeah.
Robert, can you and I get together sometime before you leave? Because I think I still need to work on cleaning some stuff up. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't know a Robert that I am incomplete with. I'm just using that name.
I do.
You do? Okay. So if your name's Robert,
My
you think I'm
papa, my daddy's name was Robert.
Oh, okay.
Lots of incompletions there.
Yeah, right. So that was number 1. Number 2, explore what feels incomplete. So everybody's had an opportunity to say, and notice those questions really pointed to things that are going to make you feel good. What are you going to miss? What did you appreciate? What did you learn? How did you grow? What have you accomplished? Those are all real positive, feel good things. What's not here intentionally in the questions that prompt completion are acknowledgments of incompletion.
Exactly. Right. Yeah.
And I say intentionally only because as the coach facilitating a 90-minute group, I know the Pandora's box that will open up.
Yeah, well, that's a different process. That's a process of getting to a place of being able to say, okay, now I'm complete. I'm going to either stay or leave the group. Right? That completion process is where you get to say all the things that are incomplete and attend to them so that you can come to a conversation like the one that you've designed and leave in honor.
Mm-hmm. And it's not, I don't know that it's a realistic expectation in most settings that you would leave a situation feeling like everything's been wrapped up and completed.
True that.
There's going to be some incompletions. And so actually I'm a little bit inspired right now to have a separate communication with the person that's leaving and invite them to explore what's incomplete from the group.
Yeah.
And at least give them an opportunity to document some trailheads that they might explore and actions that they might take.
Yeah, so this is an important, I guess, if the topic is effective communication, then I mean, I'll just say it in a really bald way since I have no hair and neither do you. If you just be positive, you probably won't get complete. There is always incompletions that need to be addressed. So an effective communication always has both sides of it. You don't just say, you know, um, I think you should leave the company. You say, you've done a lot of good for us, and I think you should leave the company.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, this is really good. I'm realizing some things just as we're going through this stuff. So number 2 is explore what feels incomplete, unrealized hopes, for example, regrets, unhealed hurts, and things that are still in process that haven't come to completion yet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And early in my experience of having a coach, one of the first and most powerful experiences that I had was an incompletion conversation with my coach, Carlos,
Mm-hmm.
who used a tool from accomplishment coaching that had me answer several different questions. And since I'd never experienced it before, I didn't filter my answers because if I'd known what was coming, I probably would have been less talkative. I would have told him less
Uh-huh.
because the question really boiled down to what feels incomplete. And we were focused on a particular issue. I think I was leaving one mortgage company for another one.
Mm-hmm.
And he wanted me to leave powerfully, and I did too. And so he said, one of the things that's going to suck your power is if you have things that are incomplete, because those will be kind of energetically drawing on you until you do complete them. And that made sense to me. So I said, okay, well, what do I do? He said, well, answer these questions. And one of the questions was, what feels incomplete about XYZ mortgage company and your experience there?
Uh-huh.
And then I'd say something, he'd write it down, and he'd say, what else? Oh, what else, huh? Okay. And then something else came to mind. He'd write it down, and then he'd say, what else? There was 15 things.
Uh-huh.
And I could see his body language starting to shift. And he was looking at his watch like, we only have an hour here, dude.
Yeah.
But he didn't tell me in advance that there was going to be a limit to how many things I could list. And there were at least those 15 things.
So I really, that's really helpful though. It does take a minute sometimes to get in touch with. We're so used to living with incompletion.
Mm-hmm.
That's what gives us cancer, I think.
Well,
That's why it's so widespread and hard to nail down. That's a huge speculation. You don't have to believe that, but
well, here's what we do know is true about that, though, and I want you to continue. But rather than just sweeping that aside, I agree with you. And here's one way that makes sense to me is that for every incompletion, there's an ongoing investment of energy to manage that incompletion until it's complete.
That's right. That's right. Mm-hmm.
And if I'm using up energy that could be going to my immune system,
Mm-hmm.
could be.
Totally, absolutely. No, the interface between the body and the mind is strong. It's
yeah.
Yeah.
I interrupted. Are you still with the thought that I interrupted?
I'm not with that thought. But I am trying to recoup. Where was I?
That's kind of what I'm asking. Yeah. You were saying that it can cause cancer to live with all these incompletions.
Right. Yeah. Oh, and we don't realize. So we've gotten immune to it. It's like the bacteria in our body. We don't, realize it's there, and eating away at us. And so to have somebody like Carlos sit there and ask anything else really gets you to, thoroughly examine, look within. Well, let's see. Is there anything else? And to suss those things out. That's so valuable to have somebody take the time to really let you sink into yourself and feel all that's there to say.
His next question made me regret listing all those things, though.
Oh?
He taught me, I'd already been learning how to take responsibility for my experience, but I still was playing the victim card quite a bit. I mean, all of those completions had a feel of victim to them. Not as a criticism. I'm not saying that I'm not criticizing that version of myself from 15 years ago when I first met Carlos. I'm just saying that I felt victimized by those incompletions. Like, this happened to me and it's incomplete.
Mhm.
I didn't want it to go this way. I wasn't happy with how it went, and I'm kind of pissed or hurt about it.
Yeah.
And so his next question was, now let's go through the list. And for each of these things, what do you want to do with this? You feel incomplete about it, XYZ mortgage company, because you don't think that they paid you for that last loan that got funded. What are you going to do with that? Are you going to let it go? Are you going to pursue it? Are you going to get an attorney if necessary? What are you going to do with it?
And this is that moment where so many times I hear people in my environment say, well, it is what it is. And you could tell that they don't really mean that it just is what it is. They have an attitude about it.
Well, yeah, I would translate that. If I were the one that's saying that from 15 years ago, that means, well, I've just been victimized. There's nothing I can do about this.
That's
I
right.
have no power in this situation.
Right.
And by him saying, so now what do you want to do with that?
Mhm.
He's handing me an opportunity to either claim my victimhood or to take action.
This is
Yeah.
earlier I referred to this as attending to those things that are incomplete.
Yeah, good.
Mhm.
And by the way, one of the things that I was really trying to make him like me. I wanted Carlos to like me. And it was my sense that for everything on that list, I needed to have some action plan. There was something I needed to do with it.
Mhm.
And when it came to, let's say, my boss at XYZ and his attitude and how he humiliated me in that sales meeting that one time, and that felt incomplete because I still felt resentful toward him.
Uh-huh.
Carlos says, what do you want to do with that?
Mhm.
You ready to let it go? No. Are you ready to confront him? No. Well, what are you going to do with it? Nothing. Okay. So you choose to remain incomplete with this. And I wanted to say, F you, Carlos. You're not, I want you to be loving and supportive here. And you're confronting me, darn it.
Don't you have a pill I could take to make this go away?
Yeah. Yeah. It was a
No,
great
that's
exercise.
so honest. That's so, and it honors the incompletion to be honest about it.
Yeah. Be in choice about it.
Mhm.
Choose powerfully to be resentful if that's but just know you're choosing it.
Mhm.
And
Right.
then I think, and a couple of those kinds of responses, I said to him, I don't know what I would do about this. If I did want to let it go, how would I?
Oh, yeah.
It's in me like this burning resentment that I can't stop thinking about. Every time I hear his first name, even if somebody else has it, I think of this resentment. How am I supposed to let it go?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's a great coaching conversation right there, by the way.
Yes.
That's a wonderful coaching conversation. Okay, let me get back to this list. We're about out of time here. I can't believe we've been in this conversation for almost an hour. The third and final thing is decide how to address what's incomplete. Interestingly, I didn't look at that first before I said all that I just said. So you can release it. You can continue processing it. You can communicate about it. You can make a request, or you can seek a repair. There's maybe a lot more things beyond that you can do, but those are the suggestions that are in this
Uh-huh.
in this completion process.
Yeah. I mean, another thing that this reminds me to say is it helps to have somebody lead you, to prompt the questions for you.
Yeah.
And to sit and be listening for and it helps draw us out to do that. It's not impossible to sit down and just journal to yourself. That can definitely work. It can be very powerful, but it's also good to be guided. Like you're not answering the question. Get back to, or like, oh wow, that really hit you. I can tell you got to the heart of it there. It helps to have these prompts to do it in conversation with somebody.
Yes.
So hire a coach.
Brought to you by the International Coaching Federation.
Right.
So thanks for listening. If you've enjoyed the podcast, please tell your best friend and your family members about it and have them listen as well. And then you guys can have a discussion about the things that we're discussing. We'd love to see you in the next episode. Thank you, Marty. Thank you, listeners. We appreciate who you are, that you would be listening to this podcast, and want to acknowledge all those parts of you that yearn for the experience of the true you.
If you like this episode, click like, share it with others, and be sure to subscribe. Listen again next week for the newest episode.
Check show notes for a transcript and a link to resources, including a link to let us know if you'd like to be a guest on our podcast.
Thank you for listening and going on this journey with us back to the true you.